Hello everybody and welcome to Parksbros, it's Drew here, and today we're at SeaWorld San Diego to check out something that has been on my mind since the park dropped a new ride survey just a couple of months ago. Why is that? Well, some of these ride ideas felt quite outlandish. Outside of a flying theater attraction or a dark ride, there were a couple of coaster options that they gave. The first of which being a B&M surf coaster. Now, if you don't quite know what that means, it is a stand-up coaster, meaning yes, you're literally standing on the roller coaster itself, and these seats like to bounce up and down very gently, creating some interesting surf-like motion while you're going over those big airtime hills and even some inversions. I will admit there is only one of these rides, at least as of now, at SeaWorld Orlando, and at least to my knowledge, we have not seen an announcement for a sequel anytime soon. But this ride model being brought up on this survey made it seem possible, especially considering SeaWorld San Diego's current lineup of coasters. The first roller coaster at SeaWorld San Diego was Journey to Atlantis, a mock water coaster, which is kind of like a roller coaster and a log flume had a baby. This ride has now officially been at the park for 22 years and has undergone quite a lot of retheming, but its heart still stays the same. It is an incredible water ride, and only one of two roller coasters that don't have a launch. The second roller coaster they opened was in 2012. This is Manta towards the back end of the park. This is another mock roller coaster. This one has multiple LSM launches. LSM stands for linear synchronous motors, which realistically is a fancy way of saying electromagnets, and those push those trains up to 40 miles an hour. Something else super notable about this ride is its location. It is incredibly close to the park's marina as well as Mission Bay, which, if you didn't know, is literally part of the ocean. And because of that, it's got some pretty crazy height restrictions, meaning it can't go over 30 feet into the air. But that then fast forwards us to another LSM launch coaster called Electric Eel in 2018. Now, there's a very big difference between these two rides. First of all, they're built by different people. The first one was mock, this one's premier, but the biggest difference is that height. It actually goes up 150 feet in the air. That reason? Well, it's farther from the ocean. Pretty closely after that, they opened up Emperor, which is the second traditional chain lift coaster at the park, but this one's a dive coaster and also is extremely tall at 153 feet. There's some pretty interesting similarities though between this ride and Electric Eel besides the height. They both have a very similar color scheme and are in similar areas of the park. That leaves us with the newest roller coaster at SeaWorld San Diego. This is Arctic Rescue. It opened up in 2023. It is another launch coaster, this time built by Intamin, and it features a tire drive launch, so you've got a bunch of rubber tires that push the train through the layout. This one is under 30 feet tall, and like Manta, has a dark blue color scheme on its track. So let's go through some of the rules that have obviously been set by multiple commissions or just the city themselves when it comes to SeaWorld San Diego. If the ride is closer to the ocean, the shorter it must be, and more specifically, under 30 feet into the air. But as long as it's shorter than 30 feet, it can be just about any color the park wishes, which is usually going to be blue, because obviously this is an ocean-themed park. But once you go above that height limit and move further away from the ocean, you can go up to heights of seemingly 160 feet, as long as you have a light blue color scheme that blends into the sky. So thinking about that surf coaster, I doubt that thing would be shorter than 30 feet, especially considering that the maiden attraction is 110 feet tall. Yes, in theory, because it is a launch coaster, it could be under 30 feet, but I don't really think that's a realistic expectation to set for this type of ride. So this is when I started thinking, where could this ride go? It would be a pretty large layout, and unless this ride started going over pathways and taking out multiple giant attractions throughout the park, it was going to have a pretty hard time fitting into all those restrictions. This is when I decided to say, heck, let's look online and see what I can find. Within 30 seconds, I found the 2020 SeaWorld San Diego Master Plan. This is publicly available on the San Diego government website, and the park has to submit something like this every handful of decades just to notify the city what they're potentially thinking for the future, especially since there are so many restrictions restrictions set on this park just for its location. And something really great about looking through this booklet is that you can actually see the specific restrictions that they have set, especially for that height limitation, and what exactly they're allowed to do within that, or where they can go taller. Now, there have been a lot of different ideas when it comes to these master plans. I found the 2002 one, which includes a parking structure as well as a hotel for the park. But one thing stays exactly the same through the multiple master plans, and that is what is designated as theme park space. Once you take a look at this, your ideas of what they can build really start to expand. Not only is what they use as employee parking up for grabs for the theme park eventually, but also a large chunk of the parking lot directly next to Journey to Atlantis and Emperor. This stretches all the way west toward the main entrance. This is about 280 to 300,000 square feet of space. And if you look at SeaWorld's height restrictions, as long as it's 50 feet from the ocean, you can go up to 30 feet tall. But then, after another 25 feet, you have a 45-degree plane that lets you go all the way up to a height of 160 feet into the air. This is when I started thinking beyond a surf coaster. This is when my mind changed to preferring and kind of believing in the airtime-filled coaster that they also teased within this survey. Now, they didn't specifically state what the real name and model or make of this ride would have been, but it's very obvious from this, unfortunately, AI image that it would be a B&M hypercoaster, or maybe not necessarily a hypercoaster per se. If we're getting into semantics, it would technically be a mega coaster, as they couldn't get this thing over 200 feet into the air. Now, I know to some coaster enthusiasts, height really means everything. Just look at a comment section underneath the ride Orion at Kings Island. But I started thinking about all of these mega coasters that I've been able to experience, and I've also heard plenty of amazing things about. No inversions, just focused on airtime. And boy oh boy, I started getting real excited. A perfect example within the SeaWorld chain is at SeaWorld San Antonio, Steel Eel. That thing's only 150 feet tall, and it is one of my favorite coasters of all time. But it does exactly what the survey's talking about. It provides lots of amazing airtime moments while also keeping up that speed. Another ride very similar but technically over that height limit would be Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. I absolutely adore this ride. It does both of the things that's mentioned in the survey, actually technically 3 because it's got some hammerhead turns in there, and a version of that ride just about 40 feet shorter would be a stellar addition to SeaWorld San Diego. While we're on the topic of SeaWorld Orlando, they've definitely shown that the United Parks chain has been very willing to work with B&M over the last couple of years too, with Pipeline opening up, as well as Penguin Trek, also another B&M ride in the last handful of years. And of course, we couldn't forget Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego. That's also a B&M. So I finally said enough is enough. I'm opening Planet Coaster 2 and building this plot of land. Once I set it up, I was not too sure exactly of what the layout should be. I probably tried to make it a little too fancy for what I was looking for, so I handed it over to my good friend Reride Raptor, and they worked their magic. So let's go ahead and walk into SeaWorld San Diego without seeing anything from the parking lot to see what the two of us were able to whip up in this space, and within all the restrictions given by the city. Once you head through the main entrance gate, you're going to take a right. Now, typically when you're going to ride most of the coasters at SeaWorld, you're going to go through that incredible looking LED tunnel, passing by Jewels of the Sea, and eventually you'll hit Electric Eel, Journey to Atlantis, and Emperor tucked in the back corner with Wild Arctic on the other side. But instead of going through that tunnel, take another right. This will lead you directly past what used to be the original main entrance to SeaWorld San Diego. As you look into the distance past one of their warehouses where they have a Hollow Scream house is the main entrance to what we're calling Hammerhead. This is a 154-foot tall B&M Hyper coaster that features 10 moments of airtime. It also reaches a speed of 63 miles an hour, making it the fastest roller coaster at SeaWorld. Also, it's got 4,000 feet of track length, making it the longest ride at the park too. And that's without utilizing the space as well as we could have. Now, this totally fits the description within the survey that they had, with one exception. It doesn't have a hammerhead turn. I know we named it Hammerhead, but to be completely honest, both of us thought hammerhead turns are kind of boring. So we replaced it with an ampersand. We need more of those. They're awesome. They pull sustained positive Gs. It definitely makes a shorter B&M hyper a little more interesting too. I did all of the theming work myself, trying to keep it as minimal as SeaWorld has gone in the last couple of editions. And to be honest, I probably still went a little overboard with the woodwork especially, but just outside the actual ride itself, there is a bunch of lockers that would definitely be used at this park, alongside a queue that in theory can fit about 1,000 people, with the quick queue going up the exit and extended quick queue being a possibility down in the plaza there. I made sure to add as many cut-throughs as possible, just in case it is a quiet day at SeaWorld so you don't have to keep going back and forth through those switchbacks, as well as adding some of that smaller foliage that will hopefully grow very big later on. The final turnarounds have a wonderful water feature that in theory definitely shouldn't be blowing SeaWorld's budget as we walk up into the station itself and hop on for a ride. Reride Raptor did an incredible job with this layout. I'm so happy with how all of it came out. And I still think the craziest thing about all of this is you could definitely fit a surf coaster underneath and around this ride too. As we walk down the exit queue now, you'll be greeted with a small gift shop as well as where you'll be able to buy some on-ride photos, a staple at any park, before you're met with a backstage gate and you'll need to turn around and leave the dead end that this coaster creates. Is it kind of annoying that this ride would potentially create a dead end, at least where I put the station? Yeah, absolutely. But looking at SeaWorld San Diego's layout, I didn't think there was a better option, especially with how much of the backstage is connected into the center areas behind Journey to Atlantis, as well as Jewels of the Sea and Electric Eel. Having that all be connected in the way it is essential for these areas' operations, and it would be fairly easy to connect all of Hammerhead's backstage operations up with this system. And heck, why not throw in another warehouse space at the far end of the roller coaster that also could potentially be used for a hollow scream house during the right season? Or heck, take out that warehouse and replace that with a new animal exhibit tying into the ride, maybe making a bonnet head exhibit, or just changing the theme of this ride altogether to an animal that can be connected directly to the exhibit they add. I'm sure some of you guys are wondering if we could have gone with a bigger drop, and it definitely is possible, but I'm not entirely sure of the groundwater level, so I figured staying completely above ground was the way to go. But in theory, we could relocate realistically see something like a 180-foot drop on a ride like this. Again, that's just in theory. I don't exactly know where the groundwater starts. I just hope this ride concept really shows how much space SeaWorld San Diego truly has to work with. A lot of people always talk about how cramped this park is, and to be honest, I don't understand why they say that. Even in the areas that would be definitely more difficult to work with the city and the Coastal Commission on to renovate and change, could see some really interesting attractions and changes there. It just would take time and it being the right attraction. I mean, heck, remember Tidal Twister? That ride was under the 30-foot height limit and pretty loud, but it still operated in that plot of land for years and has yet to see a replacement, so hopefully we end up seeing something there soon, like a handful of flat rides, a new aquarium, or maybe a Shamu Express kiddie coaster. That would fit there. All of this just makes me way more excited about this park survey. Will we be seeing any of the rides they asked about coming to fruition? Realistically, no. But there could be a lot that they'd be able to accomplish in this space or even in other areas of the park. The opportunities are endless, and I'm very excited to see what they end up doing in the future and if that park survey really makes a dent. But with all that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what was your favorite part of Hammerhead? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you have any questions or concerns about this potential ride idea, or heck, if you just want to see more of these for other parks in the future, let me know. I'd love to see what you guys think. And a huge shout out to Ride Raptor for an incredible layout for this B&M Hypercoaster. It looks fantastic, and being able to theme up and spruce up the area around it was a real joy. And speaking of enjoyment, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe if you haven't. We're going to have more SeaWorld San Diego content as well as other parks all around SoCal and beyond coming out soon. Thank you again so much for watching, and of course, until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.